Okay, today we're going to talk about how to solve percent problems. So, you can represent A as P% of B using the proportion A over B equals P over 100, where A is the part of the base and P over 100, or P%, is the percent. So if you remember in the last video, P over 100 is just another way to write a percent. So if it was 7%, you could do it 7 over 100. 50%, 50 over 100. A is always the part, B is always the whole. An easier way to remember this is over of equals P over 100. They use is and of a lot in these problems, so anytime you see is, that's the part, of, that's the whole, so is over of. If you need help remembering it, it's alphabetical, I and then O. So let's start with number 1 here. It says, what percent of 25 is 17? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our proportion. Is over of equals P over 100. So looking here, our is 17, our of is 25. So when we start filling this in, we're going to put 17 is over 25 equals, well, I don't know my percent, so that's an X, but the 100 stays there. That 100 is always in the problem. Now this is just a proportion, so we're going to cross multiply. So 17 times 100 is 1700 equals 25x. Divide by 25. So when we solve this, 1700 divided by 25 is 68. Now be careful, this isn't just 68. This is 68%. It said what percent? 68%. So that is our x, 68%. You have to have the percent sign. Let's look at number 2. 65 is 62.5% of what number? So once again, before figuring out anything else, go ahead and write your proportion down. The 100's always there. So 65 is. 65 goes on top. That's where the is. 62.5%. Well, that's always easy because there's always a percent sign with a percent. So we know that 62.5 goes over 100. Of what number? Well, I don't know, so that's my x. Once again, we cross multiply. 65 times 100, x times 62.5, then solve for x by dividing by 62.5. When I divide, I get x equals 104. Now notice this is not a percent, there's no units here, so I know I'm done. It doesn't say 65 feet is 62.5% of how many feet. It says of what number? 104. Let's try number 3 now. What number is 30% of 90? Once again, start by setting up your proportion. Notice, before I look at anything else, I have the proportion set up with the 100 on bottom. So what number is, that's my is, so I don't know my is, 30% goes on top of 100, of 90. 90 goes on bottom. Notice I'm not including the percent sign because 30 over 100 is 30%. Cross multiply, 100x equals 2700, divide by 100. So x equals 27. Alright, let's try number 4 now. 15% of what number is 40? So, set up our proportions. 15%, that goes on top of 100. Of what number, so of is my x, is 40. 40 goes on top. So then we cross multiply. So 4,000 equals 15x, and divide by 15. So when I divide that, I get 266 2/3 equals x, or your calculator might say 800 over 3. Now you'll notice here, I got 266.666 repeating. Don't want to put that unless it tells us to round. This doesn't tell us to round, so we go ahead and give the fraction 800 over 3, although 266 and 2/3 is a little bit better of an answer. And we're done. So I've done 4 with you. I want you to try number 5 on your own now. What percent of 136 is 51? Put this video on pause, and when you finish the problem, turn the video back on. Alright, hopefully you're ready for the answer now. So let's see if you got what I got. I got 37.5%. Make sure your proportion is set up correctly. 51 is the is, 136 is the of, and we don't know the percent. So percent over 100. Cross multiply, 5100 equals 136x. Divide by 136. Don't forget your percent sign. Make sure you have the percent after 37.5. Alright, go ahead and try number 6 as well. What number is 15% of 88? Take a minute, pause the video, do this problem on your own. When you're ready, turn the video back on. Alright, once again, hopefully you got the right answer. So you should have set the proportion up, x over 88 equals 15 over 100. Cross multiply and solve, and you should get x equals 13.2. Notice there's no units, no percent sign, because it's just what number. So make sure you got that one correct, and try number 7. What number is 140% of 50? Alright, hopefully you got 70 for your answer. Now do notice you can have more than 100%, but that means our part should be more than 50, because 50 is the 100%. So we would expect our answer to be more than 50 because it's 140%. So always kind of think through your answer and make sure it makes sense with the problem. If this had been less than 140%, I would expect an answer less than 50. Number 8. 20 is 12.5% of what number? Go ahead and take a minute and try that one on your own. When you're ready, turn the video back on, but go ahead and pause it right now. Alright, I got 160 for the answer. Notice no percent signs. This is just a number. Make sure your proportion's set up correctly. Make sure you got the correct answer. Once again, we can notice x should be bigger than 20, which it is. 160 is bigger than 20, because this is only 12.5% of whatever our whole is. And our whole has to be 100%. So we expect a rather large number, since it's only 12.5%. Alright, turn over to the back. We have a few word problems here. Everybody's favorite. Let me zoom out a little bit. So starting with number 1 up here, it says Antarctica comprises about 10.5% of the total land area on Earth. Antarctica has a surface area of about 5,400,000 square miles. What is the total land area on Earth? Now you have to be a little bit more careful with word problems because they don't use the words is and of like the percent sentences do. So you have to think a little more in terms of part over whole. The percent proportion still works, part over whole instead of is over of. You have to think a little more in depth. So looking up here, I know that Antarctica is 10.5%. So percent is always easy to find. 10.5 goes over 100. It has a little percent sign, makes it a little bit easier. I know Antarctica's land surface area, is 5,400,000 square miles. And I'm trying to find the total land on Earth. Well, Earth is a lot bigger than Antarctica. Antarctica is in the Earth, which means this is going to be my part, and whatever the area on Earth is, the land area on Earth is going to be is my whole. So I don't know how much land is on Earth, but I do know how much surface area is in Antarctica. So I'm going to put that on top. And then notice again, it's our same proportion, multiply across, so that's going to give me a rather large number. And then divide by 10.5. So when we divide by 10.5, we get 51,428,571.43 miles squared. Notice I included my units, miles squared, square miles. We would expect the land area, the surface area of the Earth to be a lot bigger than the surface area of Antarctica. And it is. 51 million is bigger than 5 million, which is what Antarctica was. Go ahead and try number 2 on your own. Pause the video. When you're ready to come back, go ahead and turn it on then. Alright, hopefully you got what I got. Notice my proportion, 10 over x. 10 is the part here. 10 hours is only 80% of the total amount of time she works. They want to know how many hours do you work each week. Well, that's the whole. I don't know. So you're cross multiplying. 1000 equals 80x. So you work 12 and a half hours every week. Alright, let's look at number 3. It says the circle graph shows the results of a survey in which 500 college students were asked which time they preferred to start classes for the day. So they give us our information. A says how many students who participated in this survey want to start classes at 8 a.m. So I'm looking up here, 8 a.m. is 2%. So I know I have a percentage. I'm going to set it up. I know my 8 a.m. is 2%. Well, now I need to figure out, do I know the part or the whole? Up here in the original problem, it said that there were 500 college students that were surveyed. That's the whole. That's the total amount of college kids. So I want to know how many kids said 8 a.m. So there's my proportion. Cross multiply. And then divide. So only 10 students said they wanted to start classes at 8 a.m. Only 10. So go ahead and try B and C on your own. Pause the video. When you're ready to see the answers, turn it back on. Alright, so B was pretty much just like A. We just had to figure out, this time we need 25% because 9 a.m. there were 25% that said they wanted to start then. So cross multiply, 125 students were willing to start classes at 9 a.m. Now C was a little bit more involved because it doesn't just ask for one percentage. It said 10 or 11 a.m. So looking up at our chart here, 10 a.m. was 35% and 11 a.m. was 38%. So we had to add 35 plus 38, and that's how I got my 73. Then cross multiply. So 365 students said they'd rather start at 10 or 11 a.m. So you're finished with notes. Go ahead and put this in your notes section in your notebook. And your homework will be in your textbook. You want to do page 179. Oops. Numbers 1 through 19, 22 through 29, 33 through 35, and 37.